Well, Ted and I wanted to wish you a very Merry Christmas, and we also wanted to spend a little time with you so that you could get to know my sweet husband a little better. Hi, sweet friends. I'm Mary, and this is my sweet husband, Ted, and welcome to Mary's Nest, where I teach traditional cooking skills for making nutrient-dense foods like bone broth, ferment, sourdough, and more. So if you like to learn about those things, consider subscribing to my channel, and don't forget to click on the little notification bell below. That'll let you know every time I upload a new video. Well, for those of you who've been with me for a while, you may have already seen the video where I talked a little bit about how I met my sweet husband. I met him at the airport, as a matter of fact, and you may have even seen him in a video or two where he is my wonderful taste tester. But what I thought would be fun is, as we go into this Christmas season, to have him here with me and let you get to know him a little better. And if you've not seen the video where I shared how we met, my perspective, I'll be sure to link to that in the iCards and in the description below. So as I said, my husband and I met at the airport. We met at the airport in Austin, Texas, when we were both traveling. And I've shared my perspective in that previous video, but I thought it might be fun for you all to hear about, from my husband, his perspective about when we met.
That was the best flight ever. I remember it was so unusual because I usually would travel with my mom by car to Houston and to visit my aunt who lived in Houston as well. And we used to do this on a regular basis, but then one time, I don't know, maybe I was having car trouble or was concerned about my car or something about the weather, I wasn't sure. But we said, well, let's fly down, right? And so we got tickets on Southwest Airlines, and it was what a pleasant surprise that was, because I ran into my beautiful, sweet lady. Met her at the airport. We started chatting. She was traveling with her folks on a trip, and we just started chatting together. And how wonderful that was. We were actually going down to my mom and I were going down to my aunt's wedding in Houston, and it was just wonderful that we were able to chit-chat together and get to know each other, and then exchange business cards.
That's right, we exchanged business cards.
We were able to keep in touch, and one thing led to another, and voila, I'm the happiest man in the world.
And I'm the happiest woman. But what was cute too was, as Ted mentioned, we met on Southwest Airlines. And if you look at like the little ticker thing that goes for the stock exchange, that Southwest Airlines ticker symbol is LOVE, L-U-V. So it was nice that we exchanged business cards, and Ted had my telephone number and my email. And when I got back from traveling with my parents and I checked my email, I already had an email from him. And he was like getting a dialogue going, and we were chit-chatting, and then we made plans to get together. And before we knew it, we were full-blown dating, right?
That was fantastic. Yeah, it was neat. I remember we had some wonderful dates in Austin, and enjoyed coffee. And we both had coffee and snickerdoodles, which my sweet lady has made for me over the years, and also has a nice recipe you've shared with others as well. And we had a wonderful time dating.
Yeah, it was nice.
We had a really good time. It just seems it's many moons ago.
Yeah, we've been married over 20 years.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
The best 20 years of my life.
And it really was, as we've shared with our son, who I have an upcoming video where I am talking with my son so that you can get to know him better as well, our son, and he's in his mid-20s now. But what was cute was that we were sharing with him how now that he's older, we didn't say this so much, I think, when he was a teenager, but we had a bit of a whirlwind courtship, didn't we?
That's very true.
Yeah.
Wow, that was just a few dates, and then we got married. It was just amazing. Yeah, really, really.
And we were a little older.
Yes.
So I've shared with the folks in that previous video, my husband is actually 10 years younger than me, but I was, up there, basically. But I knew right away it was very cute, because after our first date, tell them what you were thinking when you were driving home.
Oh, I thought, well, yeah, it was a wonderful date, but maybe, I don't know, I'm more of an introvert than my sweet lady who's a much more wonderful extrovert. And so I thought, well, that was a nice date, but I don't know, will I see her again? Will she be interested in seeing me again? And so I kind of drove away thinking, well, I don't know if I'll see her again, but it worked out wonderfully.
Yeah.
We saw each other again. And that was wonderful.
And I told him, I don't know if I told you this before or after we got married, but when I was driving home after our first date, oh my goodness, I just thought he was such a gem. He was nice looking, he was smart, we had a lot in common. And I was driving home, and I liked him so much after that first date. And I said to myself, I'm not going to let him get away. I wonder when he's going to propose. And he was thinking, are we going to have another date? She's nice, but geez, will she go out with me again? And I was thinking, when's he going to propose? I don't want to lose this fella.
That was nice. We had a lot of things in common, which was wonderful. It's really great, our faith, our outlook on life, and then we were blessed with a son. After marriage, it was just magnificent. It really was. That was the best flight ever, wasn't it?
That was.
I really enjoyed it.
And it really was a blessing, because I was in my 40s when Ben was born. And we really didn't know, we kind of had to we took a leap of faith getting married, because we had a short courtship. And then we just said, well, and Ted was so sweet, especially marrying somebody older. I was a little worried, because I said, oh, I'd love to have children, but I just don't know, given my age. And you were so sweet, because you said, I remember, you said, well, don't worry. If we have children, that'll be wonderful. But if not, we'll have a wonderful life together. And I thought that was very kind. And then it was just a few weeks after we got married, and next thing I knew, we were going to have a baby.
That was fantastic. Yeah,
It was a whirlwind.
You're kind, because you're such a catch. I couldn't let you get away. No, it's just it's amazing when you know your wife is perfect, right?
Oh,
isn't it something where when you know the other person is just everything they do is wonderful. I remember you had a phrase called "hang the moon." I think it was.
I can't.
Something like that.
Oh, I felt that you hung the moon.
So
Yeah.
I thought that was nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, you were just a wonderful lady.
Oh, thank you, honey.
Thank you, Marla.
Yeah, no, that's how I think after we got married, we both realized, and of course, nobody's perfect, but it's very nice when in the eyes of your spouse, they think you're perfect.
That's right.
And I think, after we got married, I was saying to Ted, oh, I just feel like you hung the moon. You're just perfect.
Yeah.
And you were surprised.
Yeah, because I always, going through life, I was always very exacting on things, having a kind of a computer background. I always, thought things had to, the program would run or not, or there'd be a bug or not, and whatnot. And it was nice having that realization with you that you're perfect. I mean, you're everything. You do everything about you is just wonderful, and it's nice when you have that feeling. And
It really is. Well, you're very kind in saying about being perfect, but because I do a lot of traditional foods and all of that. What were your thoughts? I know you like some things like Ben, and my son will share in the other video the traditional foods he liked and didn't like. But I know you two have one thing in common, and that's neither of you are fans of kefir or kefir. Some people say kefir. Neither of you are fans of that. And he tried it and didn't like it. I don't think you ever tried it because it was made from raw milk. But what were your thoughts when I got the grains and how you can share how I got them?
I tell you, I don't know. Maybe it's just the growing up with reading about Louis Pasteur a lot, and you always the raw milk. I couldn't make that leap of faith with the raw milk, and I'm so glad. I know all the benefits. I read all the benefits, and I know that it's helped you and helped Ben tremendously. Right? He's never had a cavity.
Yeah.
Those strong bones. It's more nutritious for you. I understand all those things, but I just never had made that leap of faith. And yeah, those grains you're talking about, and it came in the mail or something. I don't know. I just said I don't know about these things, and so God bless you though. And again, I see you making them. I see the benefits. I see your viewers doing the same. Following the recipes and growing their own. But yeah, it's not a leap. Raw milk, that, and I also must say one of the scariest things that you've made that I've been very afraid of is the kombucha. My God, that what is that thing? The
SCOBY.
Yeah, the SCOBY. That thing is huge. I remember you had one of the videos there where you're holding this enormous container, and it has that SCOBY in it. It's massive. And we used to have, you remember early on in our marriage, you were making kombucha or something. It was inside of a container, and it had a lid on it. Or not a screw top lid, but one of those lids that you pop into the opening on top. And I think we were sitting around once enjoying a meal or talking or something, and we hear this loud pop. And we're thinking, what is that noise? We were looking around there, and the SCOBY, I guess, had grown enough to try to escape. It popped the top off, and so I said, I don't know. It's not something I've tried, but again, I understand the benefits. I know you enjoy
That was
kombucha.
funny. That was funny. Well, I remember this is so long ago. Sally Fallon's book, Nourishing Traditions, which I really like a lot, that I think you know that, as I talk about it a lot. But something that was very funny was that book came out in 1999, and she was talking about kefir in the book. I had never heard of this, but I went onto the computer, and there was no Facebook. There was nothing like that. The only thing that I remember there being would have been Yahoo, right?
Yeah,
it would have been
yeah,
Yahoo.
yeah.
And I searched on Yahoo Nourishing Traditions to try and find a little group to participate in. So I find this little group. There's a handful of people in this group. And I type in, does anybody know what kefir is? Does anybody have grains that you'd share? You couldn't buy these things like you can today. And a lady in New Mexico, we're in Texas, and a lady in New Mexico contacted me, and she said, I have some, and I can share them with you. So I said, great. How much money do you want me to send you for them? She said, oh, no, don't worry about it. They grow, and I have a lot. Just send me a self-addressed stamped envelope and $1.25, I think it was, for postage. Okay. So I send this to her, and then I get an envelope back. Do you remember? In the mail, and in the envelope is a plastic bag filled with some raw milk and the kefir grains, and they look like little cauliflower things. And I remember you saying, you don't know. Do you remember? You don't know this person. And I never, what are those things? And they've come through the mail. Have they gone bad? They've not been refrigerated.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
It's really funny because we were so different. We have a lot in common, but we were so different on those things, right? Yeah, growing up. And I said, oh, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
But I've come around to a lot of the recipes
Oh,
that you
you-
made. It's funny. I've always thought of food as being fuel, right? So I just would eat, eat just to eat, just needing to eat. But you've got your beautiful meals that you made over the years.
You love home
I
cooking.
filled out, and I remember some of the ones that you've made. Fortunately, with all the recipes that you filmed, I enjoy a lot of the foods
Yes.
afterwards. And you made some. I never thought I would like it. Beet kavass or beet. Was the pickled beets?
Oh, the pickled beets,
yeah.
yes.
My God, I've never been a beet fan, but those were outstanding.
Oh,
I
yeah,
enjoyed
you like
that.
those.
And then the other pickled
Oh,
vegetables.
sorry, that's my phone.
The pickled vegetables and the cauliflower and all that. Oh, I just love those.
Yeah, the fermented
A
jardinera.
tortilla with some turkey slices and the jardinera, the fermented jardinera. Oh, magnificent.
And you really like bone broth. And do you remember, Benjamin was drinking it, but you hadn't had any bone broth yet. You might have had it like in soups or things like that. But do you remember the one time you had a cold and you came into the kitchen? Maybe you can share that.
Yeah. I wasn't feeling well, and I think that, I had heard of bone broth before, but must thought of it like as a base for soups or whatnot. And so to drink it by itself just seemed unusual to me. But I wasn't feeling well, and my wife always has some remedy up her sleeve, and they always want to make me feel better. So she said, "I'm going to give you some bone broth, and let me." She warmed it up on the stove. It was frozen in
In the little 2-cup containers. And it was beef bone broth.
Beef bone broth.
Yeah.
And you warmed it up in the stove and then put it in a bowl and sprinkled some of the
little
sea
sea salt.
on top of it. And it was magnificent. It was delicious. And I felt better. I don't know if it was also having the warmth of it, the taste, and helping me feel a little bit better there. But then I quickly polished it off and I asked for some more.
Yeah.
And it was I love all the types of bone broth that you make.
You do. You like the fish bone broth?
Oh yeah, yeah.
to
Your
make
soups are
chowders?
outstanding. What I really love is what's that white fish you have, and you make a
like a
fish
bouillabaisse.
stew or something. I forget what you call it, but
Yeah.
that is magnificent. I've
Yeah, you
eaten
love soup.
a couple of bowls in a row, right in a row. Yeah, your soups are one of your.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed those, honey. Now, thinking of other traditional foods, I think you were familiar with sourdough bread before we got married,
Yes.
but not it having been baked or anything at home, more that you and your dad, I think, both like sourdough bread. And where were you exposed to were you in San Francisco or?
Well, that's probably, I think when I was younger, I'd taken a trip with my dad to San Francisco Bay. We had eaten, of course, sourdough bread there. Yeah, I think we had it every once in a while. My dad used to take me, maybe Saturday mornings growing up, we'd go to a little diner and read the newspaper together and have, little Mexican skillets with sourdough bread or tortillas with them. And so, yeah, we didn't eat sourdough a lot. So when you introduced me to it freshly baked, the taste was fantastic. I remember the first one that you made, the first bowl that you had made in the oven. It came out outstanding. I think we gobbled that up hot, fresh sourdough bread, and so that's amazing. That's fantastic. And my wife always has some sourdough starter waiting in the wings there and all that. Remember we did a series, you did a series on how to use the starter because you had gotten comments from folks saying, I have to feed it a lot. What do I do with all of it?
Oh, the discard.
I don't want to throw it out.
Right.
So you did some delicious things that I all enjoyed. All those the flatbreads, the pancakes,
And the pancakes
all
and the
those are-
waffles. Yeah, it was fun.
But so with the sourdough, I really like that. That's excellent, and knowing that it's better for you, and you actually feel good after you eat that, as opposed to maybe just regular white bread and whatnot. It's a nice health benefit. But the bread, I think I like the best. We don't eat every day, but you made in honor of my dad that salt rising bread.
Oh, yeah.
That was so kind of you to do that. My dad, I remember him always talking about how he loved eating that growing up in West Virginia, and it was so he treasured it because it just reminded him of his youth, and you had passed, but you remembered of that, and you made that, found the recipe and worked through it to make a beautiful loaf of salt rising bread for him. So thank you for that, my love. We have it's nice. Our relatives in West Virginia. I used to. My wife and I were fortunate to go with my dad to meet together while he was alive. And my cousin, my wife's mentioned this a few times, has sent some honey from when raising bees. And I remember once when I was working up in the Northeast and driving through on the way home from West Virginia when I was younger in college, and visiting my cousin, and he was showing me the beehives that they have there, and they're in wood, and you can pull them apart in different segments, and he showed me an old one there, and there was this a mouse in it, and I thought, very cute, if you're a cute creature, but he wound up getting a 2x4 and he dispatched it. And I was shocked, and I said, well, why did you dispatch it there? And he said, well, they're pests. They eat food, the food that we have. And then I understood. It's funny, you don't think about it. You think they're cute little creatures, but you don't understand that pests eat the food that you need to sustain yourself and your family over the winter time, especially in West Virginia and all that many years ago. That really stuck to me. I really understood that. So that's nice. Thank you for that. For keeping these old traditions alive. The old recipes alive. And I know your viewers who write you comments and send you notes and all that really have a love of that. They really appreciate that, because that's something that people in their fast-paced life or attention to other things may tend to not appreciate or forget about, and you're helping to keep that alive for folks.
Yeah, that's so important. I've shared this with you in the past. It's so important to me to really keep those traditional foods and the traditional food preparations alive, and to teach younger generations so that we don't lose these things. Because as my husband was mentioning with the salt rising bread that my father-in-law grew up with, and he was great. I wish that I had this YouTube channel earlier, so that I could have shared him with you, so that you could have gotten to know him. He was an agronomist in the study of crops, right? Is that what it stands for, study of crops? And he just had such a wonderful knowledge about crops and about grains and whole grains. It was fantastic. And he and I, we always had a lot of fun talking about that.
Loved talking. Remember you first started talking to him about einkorn?
Yes, yeah.
And that was something new.
Yeah.
That he had not studied
in college, right? Yeah, when I mentioned to him about einkorn, because it had kind of just been rediscovered, and he was like, "Oh, this is really interesting," and we really started talking a lot about it.
It's a foreign language.
Yeah, it was.
When you guys are talking.
Yeah, and we would have a lot of fun, but he would always talk about this salt rising bread. And I actually tried once, this is years ago, and I had tried it while he was still alive, but Benjamin was a baby then, and I think I kind of forgot. I was like letting it ferment and rise. I have the video now, where I show you how to make it. I'm a lot more experienced, but that was probably 20 years ago. And I think I let it ferment too long, and then I went to check on it, and it was like all bubbled over. I remember it was a real mess, and I was saying to my father-in-law, how do you, and I didn't know his cousins. I didn't really know the cousins yet. I had met one at the wedding,
yes,
but I didn't, but it was a man, and so he wasn't really doing so much of the cooking. And my father-in-law couldn't quite remember how it was made, and there was nothing on the internet that I could find, and was trying to like cobble this together. And we only have a little community library out here, so it's not like we have a big like New York. I'm originally from New York, the New York Public Library. I probably would have been able to find something. But it was so funny because I was saying to my father-in-law, how did they do it? What did they do? And he's like, oh, there was like a potato and cornmeal. And, and I was just trying to cobble something together. And I never got it, before he passed away. But then I stuck with it. And over the years, I got to know Ted's cousins in West Virginia, and they're just great. And, they all, live this really wonderful rural, sort of homesteading life. And I asked the women, do you know about salt rising bread? And they were like, oh my gosh, yes, we grew up eating it. And they said, but it's tough to make, Mary. Don't be hard on yourself. It's hard to get it right. And it's amazing that their ancestors, pioneer women, knew just the right spot on their, what are they, like the kind of stoves that, they had the wood stove. They knew just the right spot on their wood stove to get that to be just the right temperature. And it's funny because it's called salt rising, it has nothing to do with salt. But pioneer women, as they had explained to me, had like rock salt, and it would be warm next to the wood stove, and they would put the jar in there, and it was just the right temperature. It was very cute. But they shared all of this with me. But they were challenged making salt rising bread. But the two girls started chatting amongst the women, started chatting amongst themselves and trying to remember exactly what their mother had done, what their grandmother, what their aunt had done. And we were like emailing back and forth and trying to sort of cobble this recipe together. So I finally said, okay, I'm going to give this a try. I think I've got a much better handle on it than I did all those years ago. And it was a success. And it was so cute because the first time I wrote to your cousins and I sent them pictures and they were like, you did it. We can't believe it. Remember? They were like, you're the first one in the family, of this generation to like be successful with it. So you can do it. But what's so exciting about salt rising bread is there's no cheese in it, but it tastes like cheese bread. And that's why your dad liked it so much. And
I don't remember him warning us about the bread.
Oh my gosh.
It is a stinky bread.
The bread is not stinky once it's baked, but the process.
Yeah.
And it was cute because I remember your cousin saying to me, Mary, it's really cute when you talk with people about old-fashioned traditional recipes and really traditional. We have a lot of modern conveniences today, and we have ways to make things in a more modern way. But I often do try, I really love those old cookbooks. Whenever I see edited for modern kitchens or something, that's such a turnoff to me, right? I think I've shared this with you. And I'm always like looking in the really old cookbooks and the vintage cookbooks from the 1800s and the 1700s where, people didn't have the modern conveniences, because I want to know, how did they do it? How did they make these things? But it was so cute because our cousins were saying to me, they were trying to be gentle about it. And they were saying, we just wanted to let you know, there may be an odor to the starter, because you make a starter, but it's a one-time starter. It's not like sourdough. And they're like, there may be a little odor. There may be, maybe you want to open a window. And then your youngest cousin was so cute because she said, it stinks. It's like bad. She doesn't cut the mustard. She is so much fun.
It doesn't mince words.
It doesn't mince words. Yeah, that's the right expression.
Yeah.
And she really made me laugh because she said, be prepared. It's like stinky socks.
Yeah, that I remember. And then there was another thing. Another plant called ramps
Oh my
in
gosh.
West Virginia. I guess that has an odor to it too. So it's funny we remember these things from West Virginia, but anyway, that was a great recipe.
Yeah, the
Thank
salt
you for
raspberry,
making
it's
that.
great bread. It's great bread if you can get the hang of it. And I have a really detailed video where I walk you through the whole process. But what I love about ramps is there was an article, and I can't remember if it were like the New York Times or the Washington Post, one of the big cities. And it was talking, I think it was the New York Times, and it was talking about ramps and how the people in New York City and very sophisticated and going to the farmer's market, and they were so happy to get ramps for the first, fires going.
That's a good one.
And they were so happy to the first signs of spring, and they're cooking up their ramps. And this was maybe 10 or so years ago when that concept of, farm to table was becoming very popular. And I think a lot of these, and I can speak to this, I'm a former New York City girl. You never heard of ramps, we were city people. And it was so cute because they were saying in this article, oh yes, and the city people, and they're first signs of spring, buying their ramps and going home and cooking them, and so proud of their farm to table recipes. Well, I was telling this, I had not had ramps. I was telling this to my father-in-law. He couldn't stop laughing. And he said, God bless them, and wait till they cook them and eat them. They're delicious, but they're going to stink to high heaven. Because when we were kids, this is him talking, he said, when we were kids, anybody who ate ramps had to go sleep in the barn that night because they reeked of like a garlicky onion smell. And I just thought that was so cute that they had to sleep in the barn. And I think of all of these city folk, eating the ramps going, my, these are quite fragrant.
No, I was very blessed. For my dad and for you, sweetie, because my dad, I remember as an agronomist, he loved wanting the world to have enough to eat. He always wanted people to not go hungry. He wanted to make sure that we could produce enough food and crops efficiently and in such abundance that we could feed the world. We could feed the United States. We could feed the entire world. And so he was very, very focused on wanting to do that. And I think how wonderful it is that I was able to find you, my love, and you also want to help people eat nutritiously and preserve the old ways of making traditional foods and whatnot, and helping other people. So it's amazing. I'm blessed with that. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. I always enjoyed with your dad because he had a love of finding the old books too about the farming methods that people used in the 1800s. And it's cute because I remember we'd go over to your parents' house and your dad, when we discovered that you could buy used books on Amazon, and he had found this book from the 1800s talking about the farming practices and different things they did with crops. And I remember when we walked in the door, he was like, Mary, come here. I got to show you this, in the book that he had got and talking about it. He and I both had such an interest in that. But he really had such a love of just exactly what you talked about, finding ways to how best to grow crops and and crop rotation and incorporating animals into you really just incorporating animals into the agricultural picture and the benefits that they brought. And but yeah, he was just such a farmer at heart. He really was.
He really loved the farm. The one other neat thing that you've introduced me to many neat things. But one thing I'd never been exposed to before was canning. Home canning, I always thought it was done either in a big factory somewhere or done in some very rural area. But you enjoyed canning. You knew a lot about it, and you started canning a lot of delicious things. In particular, I didn't realize how much in jam. How much sugar goes into jam.
Yes.
And holy mackerel, the marmalade jam.
Yeah, marmalades.
That was, wow, I never realized that. And when you make your own jam, and you've made a couple different recipes, you have a low sugar and a no sugar one, those taste just as good as the ones with tremendous amounts of sugar in them. So how neat it is! I didn't realize the canning, how to can before. So I learned as you went along and made these things and was able to enjoy the fruits of that.
Yeah, it's funny too because given our backgrounds, we're both kind of suburban raised kids, and then as an adult I lived and worked in New York City, and I grew up right outside of New York City, and I was in New York City a lot as a kid, and you had a basic suburban upbringing more or less, and lived close to a city. And so here it was funny finding ourselves both now married and living in a smaller town, a little farther from the city, and really starting to embrace the gardening. And although you're very good, you're always saying, I do all kinds of different things outside, and Ted is always great because he says, oh, the garden's yours, whatever you want to do. Right? And then, even though I had been exposed to a lot of things with my mom, with traditional foods and cooking, she taught me how to cook and garden and can. As a young single woman, I wasn't really doing these things. And so it was kind of fun moving out here to this small town. And it's grown now, over the years, but it was a small town when we first got here. And sort of bringing those things back to life, the gardening and the canning.
Yes.
That's really been a lot of fun.
It was neat with this is a crazy year.
Oh gosh, yes.
But one of the silver linings is our son was able to spend time with us for a lot of the time during this year.
That's been nice.
And then having, especially with the gardening with him, I remember one of the videos, Mary and Ben gardened together, planting some of the vegetable scraps. That was really neat, and it was nice to see mom and son work together again after our son had grown up, because I remember back when he was a little guy, enjoying being out in the garden with mom. That's one of the nice things about always good to look at the silver lining. Getting to know, especially after my dad passed, getting to know my cousins in West Virginia more. Our cousins in West Virginia more, as well as that's on my dad's side, as well as my cousins on my mom's side who are also around the United States as well. So it's been a joy to get to know them more, especially this year, to talk with them more. That's just been a nice thing, because I remember one thing my wife mentioned to me is that you always think of, oh wow, way back when that was the best of times. Wasn't that great when 20 years ago or 10 years ago, and I know you always emphasize to me, these are the best of times.
Yes. These are the good old days.
Yeah, enjoy the time that you have now, and I know I certainly have enjoyed your delicious cooking, but enjoying the time I have with you, my love, and with our son while he's here with us, with everything that's been going on. Just enjoy life. Enjoy life.
So true.
You help me to become more optimistic through our marriage, and I know you have a lot of positivity that really helps everybody. And but I know
thank you,
it's
honey.
helped me because I've been an introvert and perhaps more more worried about the world and whatnot when I was younger, and you helped me to just to be, be positive, be cheerful, look at the wonderful things, the blessings that we have in life, and so thank you for that, my love.
Oh, thank you,
That's,
honey. You do a lot of that for me. When I get worried, he's always like, "Oh, give your worries to me. I'll take care of it for you." It's very kind of you. And you mentioned your cousins on your mom's side of the family. And we always say, yes, those are cousins on his side of the family or cousins on my side of the family, but we always think of them as our cousins, because, we're all basically related. But your cousins or our cousins on your mom's side of the family are very interesting because on my husband's mother's side of the family, he's of Asian ancestry. And it's just so much fun when those cousins have come to visit us because they know how to make so many unique foods that I was never exposed to before we got married. And it was so cute. Now, we haven't seen them this whole year, but in previous years when they would come to visit, they would teach me so many recipes. And I've also learned from your mom, about dumplings and I have to tell you a funny story about making spring rolls with dumplings and oh gosh, I can't even remember the exact names of them. You'll have to help me with that. But like the little pancakes, bunsel, yeah. But it was so cute when Ted and I first got married. So my mother-in-law taught me how to make the dumplings, and then she taught me how to make the little, gosh, I can't remember what they were called, the little triangle things.
Like wontons?
Yeah, like wontons, I think she had a different name for them, but they're very similar. You use the wonton wrapper, and we cooked those up, and that was fun. But it was so cute when she said, oh, Ted really likes spring rolls, and I'll show you how to make them. And they're the ones that are made with the, it's like a little stretchy rice paper. And you just, I can't remember now if she dipped it in hot water or whatever. I was such a failure at it. It was a comedy show. But
it was hard to pull apart.
It was hard to pull apart. So we put it down, and then she shows me, she's very good at it. And she rolls it up and she says, oh, you can do it. And my mother-in-law is the kind of person who's like, you can do it. Don't worry about it. And she's going, I remember my mother-in-law is fluent in French. And I took French for many years in school, but it'd been so many years. And it was really cute because she would give me letters from her friends that would write to her. And I'd say, oh, can you help? She's like, oh, you can do it. It'll come back to you. You'll remember, She's like a real cheerleader. And so she gives me the rice paper, and I'm trying to roll this thing. And remember, it was sticking to my fingers. I've gotten better over the years, but that was very funny. And God bless her, she's so patient. She's looking at what I'm doing. And she's like, okay, let's just adjust it a little. But it's really been a lot of fun when our cousins have come, and they're kind of all over the country. But we had a family reunion with them a number of years ago. And that was great because pretty much everybody was able to make it, I think,
Yes.
except one cousin who actually came a few weeks later. So we just kind of had her all to ourselves, which was a lot of fun. But it was just, it's just very interesting hearing their stories because they're first generation Americans, and hearing their stories about coming to the United States and the foods that they brought with them, the cooking traditions that they brought with
They
them.
had a big, was it a
Jackfruit,
My
yes.
God, it was enormous.
I think that's called a
Yeah, I never
jackfruit.
had that before.
Yeah.
And
The Asian pears,
oh,
which
yeah,
were
yeah,
delicious.
Those were delicious. Those are excellent.
Yeah.
I remember those were good. A whole bunch of other different foods that they had.
And they were so happy because they
introduced me
found
to-
them at our grocery
Yeah,
store.
and
Yeah.
I had never tried before. So it's just interesting. I am getting to know them better. One thing when my folks had gotten together, getting married, long time ago, it was not very common for people of different ethnic backgrounds to get married, and it was more of a maybe things were not as accepting for that, and so. So I guess it was hard. I mean, hard for them, but their love kept them together and strong. It growing up was not always easy, but one of the greatest things that my wife gave to me is her love, and knowing that her love helped me feel very good about myself, and I want to thank you for that, my love.
honey,
So I didn't get a. It wasn't until recently that I feel having the opportunities to get to know my mom's side of the family more, and I feel I've missed out on many years of not being able to get to know them more, and now I'm happy to be able to do that little by little and step by step, and enjoying it along the way with you, my love, as we both get to know more of the culture and more of the foods on my mom's side. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really learned a lot from your mom and your cousins about the different foods, and they're just wonderful people. Wonderful. And we really love them. We're so blessed to have them in our lives.
Tremendous love,
Yeah.
love of our country, love of family, just tremendous love that they share with us, and so very blessed. On my side of the family, both my dad's side, lots of love from West Virginia there, and the love from my mom's side around the country. I feel very, very blessed.
And it's so sweet because, they love me, just like if I were their blood relative. They really embraced me. And what's so cute is that when they met my mom and they were calling her grandma, it was just adorable. And they really honor the elderly. That's very culturally, I think, embedded in them, that they really honor the elderly. And they were so kind, very kind, obviously, to my mother-in-law, who's their aunt, but they were just so kind to my mom. And I remember we took them for a Texas barbecue, and we had a lot of fun. And they were just giving my mom so much attention, and just really, like, the expression, like, just loving on her. And it was really cute because the next day my mother said, "They're so nice. They just love me so much." I was just, they just love me so much, But it's just been such a joy getting to know them, and something that I'm so happy about because my parents raised me. They just really, they just always embraced all different cultures, and I think also too, growing up in New York, I was just exposed to a lot of different cultures, and it was funny because my father had been in the military for part of his life and had spent a lot of time in Asia. And it was cute because when we met, and I just knew a lot of different things and whatnot, and about Asia. and it never. It's interesting because I think, like you've shared, being multiracial but growing up at a different time, it was a little more difficult, and I never thought about that. It never crossed my mind. He was just perfect to me, and it was funny because I remember you had a little concern, about my parents, just being older people, and I will say, like, would they be a little uncomfortable, about our courtship? And I remember it was funny because, especially, both my parents, it didn't matter to them at all. But I remember it being cute given my age that I was older. And I said, oh my gosh, are you kidding? They're going to be so happy that I have somebody who wants to get married with me. Remember?
Yeah, they loved me very much.
Yeah, they loved you very much. But, and it was very cute because my father has since passed away, but my mom, I think it was like right maybe after we got back from our honeymoon. I can't remember exactly when this happened, but it was very cute because I think I said something using the terminology son-in-law, and my mother said, oh no, he's not my son-in-law, he's my son. And I thought that was very nice.
Yeah,
I thought that was very nice.
Yeah, that's one thing I wish, and you always hear people say this, but I wish I'd gotten to know both my dad more and my father-in-law more while they were still alive. So if you have any older parents in your life, and you have an opportunity to talk with them again, just chat with them a little bit more about what they remember in their old times, and who knows, you might get some neat recipes out of it, or just at least get to know a little bit more about what they're growing up, because it's part of your heritage. And so that's one thing I miss about our dads, and I'm glad that we can spend some time chatting with our moms about that.
It is. That's so true. You just sometimes you think people are going to be with you for forever, and they're not. And then you miss out. If you don't take advantage, and it can be like 5-10 minutes. It doesn't really. It doesn't have to be. It can be in small snippets of time, just taking the time to get to know them better. But something that I think is so beautiful is, and I think that this made you very happy, was how our son, Ben, really embraced
Oh my goodness.
your culture, or from your mom's side.
I'm amazed because I was not, I did not embrace my Asian side of my culture growing up. Again, it just things were not as they are today. But my son loves Asia and Asian cultures, and how that fills me with such, love and peace. I love our culture, the American culture that we have. We have the most wonderful country, and I know that it's wonderful knowing about your Italian and your Irish heritage, getting to know you, especially through the food. I love that. And it's nice, again, getting to know my Asian culture, my side of the culture, as well as my American side with my dad. But that our son just loves our culture, and fills me with love and peace. So I'm very happy.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, Ted and I have a lot in common. But something that he really introduced me to, well, actually two things, but that really was not something that I did a lot, was games. And not just ordinary games. Now, growing up, sure, I played Monopoly or Clue or things like that. But I learned from Ted that is like this whole world of games that I had never heard of or been exposed to, and that were so much fun to learn about from him. The other thing is movies. I think Dad loves movies, and when we met and we went on even our first date, we went to the movies, and I remember telling you that I think I hadn't been to a movie theater in about 10 years. I would just watch them on TV or whatever the case may be. But in any event, getting back to games, uh, I'd love for you to share with everybody the games that you like, because I think it's very interesting to people because, as you shared with me, that some of them are becoming a little more commonplace.
Yeah, I guess I've always enjoyed playing games. Growing up, one of my fondest memories is of going to the hobby shops with my dad and rummaging through all the old games that they had there um, while he would be looking around. And one nice thing that um, m- my wife's mentioned that we like to listen to KNCT, kind of the easy listening music. That always reminds me of two things. One is going to hobby shops with my dad because they always play the music in the background in the shop as we going around, and I find little boxes with little soldiers in it and things like that. Um, and so that was a nice thinking of that nice memory. But also, when our son was younger, we played. I never knew about that easy listening station, KNCT, until my wife introduced me to it, and it was so pleasing. Again, it reminded me of the old times. So we've listened to it ever since our son was growing up, rocking in the chair.
Yeah.
My wife would be rocking him in the easy chair, listening to the music in the background. So it's always been a part of our life. And so it's nice when I hear it now. I think of two things: being with my dad, and then with our son when he was much younger. But it always makes me think of games because we always played games with our son too, growing up, and so the games that I enjoy, just like being able to get together with people and talking, with our family. I used to have, again, before this year, I used to have a wonderful set of friends who would come over, and we'd go to different houses and we'd play games together, different games. And it's a nice time to catch up, maybe once a quarter or a little longer stretches of time. And these are friends I've had for decades, since college. And fortunately, we've been living together, relatively close by, so we can meet in different houses and just play games and catch up. And these games, they're not, as you mentioned, they're not like Monopoly, they're not like Risk or things like that, because those games, if somebody gets knocked out, then they're out of the game and they just, sit around until the rest of the game is played out. So these are more of the European type games that are very commonplace nowadays. You probably have heard of some of them, like Settlers of Catan, Carcassonne. Typically they're big pictures or very visual, not a lot of writing, not a little small text that it's hard to read, but the very language independent. So that way you can play it. You can look at symbols and pictures and whatnot. That it makes it very easy to play. And can play across countries, and that's why, again, that's another unique aspect of the European games. And people don't get knocked out. There's always people can play through the whole game. And a player won't get sidelined as part of that. Typically in those games. So I mentioned a few of those that you probably could see at your local department store. One of the ones that I never knew that I would have loved is one that my wife got me a few years ago, called Seven Wonders. And there you're building your civilization through cards, through
It's such a fun
history,
game.
and that's nice. Again, big pictures, very minimal text, very easy to play and wonderful, and we've had a lot of good times with those playing those games together as a family. What are some of the other neat one? I think that we had played recently with our son was Everdale, and oh my God, that's a beautiful game. The I know one thing you enjoy is the pictures of
I love
creatures,
it. Yeah, little
anamorphic,
animals dressed in
dressed
clothes.
up and doing wonderful things, and that game has a little more text. So you might if it's hard to see, use a magnifying glass to see some of the text. But other than the pictures are gorgeous. They have husband and wife cards. They're different animals, different things you can build as you build up your little city of folks, animal folks, together. So that's a gorgeous game. So it's I do enjoy that. I do enjoy and they have a lot of food. They have food stuff.
Yeah, they have a little store.
And
Yeah,
stuff like that. And that's neat. That reminds me of I think you have some viewers who play computer games, and they write you and they say that they've encountered some of the things that you created in your recipes in those games.
that was so cute. I had I still have. I have a little group of, maybe y'all are watching, but I have a nice little group of friends, and I actually think those fellas are up in Canada, and. The one wrote to me, and then a couple of others, they wrote to me. And it was very cute because they were playing some computer games, and in the computer games, there were potions. And the potions were like rose hip syrup and elderberry syrup and different things like that. And these are young guys. These are guys in their early 20s, and they had no idea what these things were. And then somehow, because of some game they were playing, because it was cute, because they wrote to me and they said, I don't know why you came up in my YouTube recommendations, but maybe some game they were playing had something to do with elderberry, and I had done an elderberry syrup or whatever, and it came up in one of their recommendations, and then they clicked on it, and they said, oh, it's so funny. I learned what elderberry syrup was, and then I learned what rosehip syrup was, and all the other different potions and tonics. They were calling them potions, but I would call them tonics that I was making. And they were like, "Oh, we learned so much about these things from you, and now we know what the heck they're talking about in the game." So that was funny.
That was neat. It was neat to see that. The kind of food crosses boundaries.
It does. It really does.
And you mentioned I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I was going to say something that you mentioned. You raised this as a really good point. And I want to mention this because I've shared with some of you that our son has dyslexia. And my husband was mentioning about games. The nice thing about the European games, as opposed to games, the sort of the more typical board games that you think of, when you're growing up. But the European games often have very limited text. They have a lot of pictures, and that makes it very easy. If, like my husband, if you have some issues with your eyesight, it makes it very easy to play the game. Or, like our son, if you have dyslexia, it makes it very easy to play the game because you're not having to worry about, in the case of our son, just being overwhelmed and not really enjoying the game. Or if you have issues with your eyesight, you don't have to worry about always having the magnifying glass, to read the cards or whatever the case may be, because most of these games, everything is presented in pictures, and they're pretty, it's very visual in the sense of large pictures, and the if it's got cards, the cards are, like regular playing cards, and there's often like a lot of little pieces, so it's a very
very tactile.
Very tactile.
Yeah, that's one of the gorgeous things that there are a lot of pieces that are just beautiful to behold. It's really a work of art.
They really
Some of those
are.
games are just beautiful works of art.
I'm sorry I interrupted you, but
I was going to say about movies. You mentioned movies.
Oh yeah.
That's another thing about this year is that we can't visit any movies, and but that's one nice thing is I know growing up. I enjoyed like Star Wars and movies like that. And I know our son loved Star Wars.
Oh my gosh.
When he grew up during that Clone Wars time, when he dressed up as a clone trooper and enjoyed playing Star Wars.
And the dog.
And the dog. And
Obi-Wan Kenobi is our dog.
How neat that you've embraced these cultures, these Star Wars types cultures, and
I love
in
it.
The Mandalorian, I know we were loving The
Oh my
Mandalorian there,
gosh.
especially when you saw Baby Yoda drink the,
The bone broth.
That was neat. Wow, when that happened, I remember you were just, wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
That
that
they
was a
did
lot
that.
of fun.
So we just finished watching the last episode, and now we have to wait till season 3 to come out. But it was nice. It was
Yes,
fun.
and
It's a lot of fun.
Spoiler? Is
No,
it a
don't
spoiler
tell me
alert?
spoiler, no
Spoiler
spoilers.
alert. Okay, I
Don't
wouldn't say
don't
anything.
don't say you have to watch it. You have to watch it to enjoy.
But yeah, I love Baby Yoda. Oh, or the child.
Yeah.
And he actually has a name now, but I won't say anything in case you've not had a chance to catch up. But yeah, the movies you really introduced me to. I had seen one Star Wars, and they're not numbered like this, but because they don't go in order, because the newer ones have lower numbers, but the original Star Wars, which would have been number 4, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
right, yeah.
That I had only seen that, and I saw that as I was an adult, and I saw it with a friend of mine. She said, "Oh, you want to go to the movies?" And we were like, "Oh, okay, let's play Star Wars." And I had always liked science fiction, so like, okay. But I saw that, and then that was the end of it. Never really saw any more or followed through with it. Well, when Ted and I got married, he liked Star Wars and Indiana Jones and the other kind of action Marvel,
Oh, yeah, grew up,
Marvel characters.
Reading Marvel comic books when I was really young.
And I really had no exposure to this. And we watched all the Star Wars, and oh my gosh, our son loves Star Wars. And we even went to a Star Wars convention.
Yes, yes.
Oh, what a good time!
I
Yeah,
really enjoyed
we
it.
had
That
such
was
a good
fun.
time.
Well, we're quite the
Yeah,
geek.
yeah, we got the geek family, and then you introduced me to the whole line of Indiana Jones movies, and now I have seen probably all the Marvel movies, and I know Iron Man
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Spider-Man and all these things, and I loved. The Guardians of the Galaxy
Oh, yeah.
movies.
Yeah,
those are my favorite. I love the
fun.
little
Those are fun.
raccoon in it. Well, I know he doesn't.
Rocket Raccoon.
Rocket, yeah, he's just a great character. He's so funny. But what's funny about it is, given my age, but now being introduced to all of these, and probably, I guess maybe girls have interest in it too. But having a son, we really embraced all the action hero stuff, and it is fun to sometimes talk with younger folks, and then I know all the storylines.
They're surprised.
They're surprised.
I must say, I enjoy episode for Star Wars, for you Star Wars aficionados, episodes 1 through 6. I was not a fan of the 7, 8, and 9. So but the Mandalorian series really
They made
brought
up
back
for
home.
it.
They made up for it, so that was a lot of fun to see those.
And it's really cute too, because I said to my son, "Did you like?" Because he would have seen those, with his buddies or whatever, as he's older. And I said, Dad was not a fan of 7, 8, and 9. Did you like 7, 8, and 9? And he said, "Oh no, Mom, they need to just make those go away or something." And I said, "Well, he's got a really lovely girlfriend." And I said, "Well, what does your girlfriend think of them?" And he said, "Oh, I think she kind of likes them, and she feels there's a romance or something, But it was funny that, but when especially the younger fellas I have that are viewers who play computer games and whatnot, but I've learned from them because they correspond with me, and it's cute because they'll say, "Oh." At first it was funny because I've shared with Ted, sometimes they'll say, "Oh, you're like a mom," and sometimes they say, "You're like a grandmother." And at first I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm really getting old." But it's true with them being in their early 20s. But it was cute because they will tell me things, about Star Wars or whatever. and I'll say, oh yeah, my husband and son are really into it, and they, really educated me about it. But they're not happy with 7, 8, and 9. It seems like this is universal amongst men who are big and boys who are big Star Wars fans. And it's funny, and they're like, "Oh, they're so right," and it's so cute. I can almost hear them talking. But The Mandalorian, boy, that's a really good show.
Yeah,
It's a really good show.
Really good
I
job.
really like that
Really
one.
good job. Oh, I do want to mention one more movie that I had never seen before, but you had introduced me to.
Me?
Yeah, that
Oh.
was The Inn of Sixth Happiness.
Oh, my favorite movie ever.
That was a joy to watch, and that it was my wife's favorite movie. It would really warm my heart.
It's The Inn of the Sixth Happiness with Ingrid Bergman, and it was made in the 1950s. And you got to see this movie, and you can't miss it. And I just, my father having served in the military and had spent time in Asia, and then my parents also together had been to China. My father having been in Korea and Japan during the 1950s and whatnot, and would sing me Korean lullabies when I was growing up, and he would tell me a lot of stories about Asia and whatnot, and so I was just fascinated with it. And I had my whole room decorated with different little things I would find that were Chinese or Korean or Japanese, at little rummage sales that my mother would take me to. But I saw, for the first time, I guess I was about 5 years old, and I saw Inn of the Sixth Happiness. And I just love that movie. And it's about a woman, Ingrid Bergman. She's a missionary, and she goes to China. And there are some very cute scenes in it. But it's funny the way God works in mysterious ways. You never know what's going to happen to you in life. But there's a scene in the movie where Ingrid Bergman falls in love with one of the men in the movie. And the man is half European and half Asian. And he says to her, and I think we almost both, when we saw this together years later, I think we both were getting little tears in our eyes, because the man is so sweet in the movie, and he says something to her. And this is very generational, because now, going into 2021, it's very different today. It's very, people are modern, it doesn't really matter, people's ethnicity and all of that. But as my husband shared, it was very different for his mother and father, and it was also different, for him growing up. But in this movie is set in the 50s, and the man says to Ingrid Bergman, "Oh, I'm so touched. I'd be honored, but and I'm kind of paraphrasing, but he says something to her, "Oh, I'd be honored, if you loved me because, of my mixed heritage." He says it's something like that. I don't remember exactly. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but I think we both found it so touching, and it really, I think we both were, there wasn't a dry eye in the room, But it's kind of funny about all of that, because there I was just as a little child, and I don't think I really focused on that storyline. It was more the magnificence of the movie and the scenery and the filming and, just being so enthralled with it, and having heard stories, from my dad and whatnot. But seeing that years later with you, that part of the movie really touched our hearts, I think. But that is, I highly recommend that. And I always, when my husband asked me, well, what is your favorite movie? And I said, oh, hands down, Inn of the Sixth Happiness, with Ingrid Bergman. And you had not seen that being an older movie. And then, but now when you ask me, okay, of modern movies, what is your favorite movie? And I think Guardians of the Galaxy.
Well, thank you, my love. Thank you for introducing me to that movie.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed that. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed having this opportunity to get to know my sweet husband Ted a little better. And this handsome fella is our son Ben. And I've got another video coming out next week where you're going to get to know Ben a little better. But in the meantime, we have a little song for you. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Love and God bless.